But that's on camera.
Maybe we can do without him. Okay, now we're going to call to order the Newburgh School District Board of Directors for November 12th, 2024. And for the flag salute, Director Allen. Okay, do we have any agenda additions or deletions?
Yeah, I would like to submit an addition for basically an update from the finance committee and it should be under just probably discussions, I think. And then more focused topic of forensic audit. We have a suggestion from the committee. So
Well, do you want to put it right after Gay Ellen's
that works too.
report? And
Yep.
that way.
Yeah,
follow
wherever.
that.
I'm just
Okay.
saying when in the major section. I don't care where
Yeah,
what
well, let's
order
put
it
it
is.
under the finance update. So just remind me if I forget about that. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Oh, yes, sorry. Do you have to make a motion?
I move that we add a item regarding the finance committee updates behind the financial updates for tonight's meeting.
Second.
Any questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? See, we will put that on the agenda there. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the consent agenda. We have new hires and resignations, the board minutes, donations, and I know we always like to highlight the really amazing donations, which this does not really entail all the donations that we get over the month for all the schools. The Lowy Marsh Foundation of $1,250 to Dundee Elementary School for the Reading Fund. The Versatile Plastics LLC for $1,000 for the men's basketball and women's golf. I know that my Rotary Club did a painting job out at Ewing Young Elementary, and Sherwin-Williams paid for the paint. And I believe that Ewing Young also had another donation for electrical work. And I really apologize not remembering the name of the company that came in and helped with that. So I think there are other things that happened throughout the month that we don't always know about, but. Okay, so do we have any a motion for the consent agenda or questions or?
I have a question, and just for clarity, I know we've had a change in leadership in the district. I know it's just approving minutes, but that sparked my interest of who's taking minutes. Mike.
New stuff. Tabitha Rennie will be watching the video and then grabbing minutes from the playbacks, and then we'll push those out to be approved.
Thank
If
you.
that's acceptable.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Thanks.
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So, Vice Chair Director Wolfer made a good point. Welcome, Dave.
Yeah.
It feels like you've been here for quite a while.
Just getting down to
Welcome
business.
to Dave Parker, our interim superintendent.
Thank you.
Everybody, hooray. Okay, I'd like to call Sarah Moore up to the podium here. If you could turn your microphone on and speak nice and clear so that the audience at home can hear you.
Thank you. It's on, right?
Yeah.
So my name is Sarah Moore. I am a parent at Newburgh School District. Today I have 3 things I just wanted to share. First, I want to thank Dr. Radich, Amy Stevens, and everyone at the last board meeting who contributed in the conversation about working to support our special education program. As a parent of a student with different needs, there was so much relief in hearing we need to work on things. For far too long, our programs have been just getting by, and we have been hearing it's all good from our district, when as parents, it has felt so hard. We have amazing staff working to make it work without the systems and support they truly need. Thank you for bringing the issue to the table, and thank you to Rebecca Pyros for your advocacy, as it supports so many. Secondly, I am one of the many parents of a student with special needs in the district who want so much to be a part of a solution in supporting our students and staff. We would love to have our voices heard and be able to share what is working, what has worked in the past, and how things could be better. Someone mentioned that transparency, clarity, listening, and action are integral if the district is to move forward to improve services for our kids. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And want you to know we have parents ready and here to actively support our district. I am just one. And lastly, I wanted to bring to the district's attention that December 2nd is Special Education Day. This is a day to celebrate all the progress that has been made to support our students. We have amazing special education teachers, specialists, and EAs that show up every single day for our kids doing amazing things. And we are so thankful for them. But that is just a part of it. There is so much more to the special education team. And as a district, I encourage you on December 2nd to celebrate not just our special education teachers and ESAs and our EAs, but all of our staff. It takes everyone to make special education work. Everybody in the building is a part of the special education team. It takes our teachers, our counselors, our office staff, kitchen crew, custodians, school board members, administrators, all of them to support our students if it's going to be successful. And they have to be a part of that story. So December 2nd, just a history real quick. Special Education Day commemorates the signing of the Individual with Disabilities Education Act from 1975. The Individual with Disability Education Act granted access to children with special needs to free quality public education. The act has been revised several times, but the crux of it remains the same and is the foundation for special education in the US. In support of this act, our schools pledge to provide quality education to students with special needs. So anyways, thank you all. Thank you all for what you're doing. And thank you for supporting our students and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can I ask one thing?
Yeah.
Our tech person, sorry, I don't. Can you focus on the boardroom as the main window or whoever is talking? Just so our audience can see us in a bigger frame of light.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And while they're working on that, Sarah's still here.
Hit the.
Sarah, I know that you guys had the big Special Olympics swim meet this weekend, and a lot of community members came out as volunteers to help. And it from all of the posts from social media, it looked like it was an amazing event. So cheers to you and everybody else who put in all that work for those great athletes. Amazing. First time in our pool, and they were just amazing. That's great. Glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's better than it was before. Okay. We can leave it like that. Want me to try speaker? Yeah.
Yeah.
That gallery is probably good for right now.
Do the gallery and then you can hide her. Well, she'll be coming up anyway soon, so.
Okay, so this is a time to hear from our student reps. Do you have anything that you want to add?
No, not today.
Okay, all right, thanks. Moving along at a very quick pace. Okay, so we're going to hear now from Andy and Donna. Are they both here or is it just Andy? Okay, Andy, come on up and turn on the microphone, please.
Well, good evening. So it's the time of year again where I get to ask permission to take staff and students to Japan. So this is our 35th year in this cultural partnership in which students will get a chance to explore Japanese culture and represent our school, district, city, and nation and city school and city functions. So students then in turn from Sago City come over and visit us in Newburgh as well and in August. And I'm excited to say that we had a great turnout this year in applications. Over 50 kids actually asked for applications, and we had 26 completed applications, and all of them went through recommendations by teachers and an outside recommendation from an outside source. They wrote essays. They had an interview, which was great because they dressed up nice and really took it seriously. And unfortunately, only 10 students were selected to go because it's our cap. But it was a really great experience for our students, even if they did not have opportunity to make it to Japan or not. So I'm excited to have 10 kids join us, and then it'll be myself, Miss Golden, who is our coordinator for our Wadayama exchange program. And our teacher is this year, Sarah Brown. And fun about Sarah Brown is this is her first year going to Wadayama as a chaperone, but she also went as a student delegate way back when. So it's a kind of a neat full circle for her to be part of this program and continue this piece. We'll be leaving on May 10th, right before Mother's Day. So mothers will be sad to see their daughters and their sons head off on the plane. But I'll make sure they send them messages during Mother's Day. And we're back on the 19th of May. It's 2 days of travel and 7 in country. So, do you have any questions about the trip?
I would just ask that the fundraising efforts that maybe as the board, we could get, noticed about some of that, because
Yeah.
there might be opportunities for board members to participate.
For
in
sure.
Things
Our
or buy
first one's gonna
ties or
be-
whatever it is. They
First one's going to be at the Ewing Bazaar. Our kids came together this weekend and worked on some stuff to sell at the Ewing Bazaar. So that's the first stab at it, and they'll be continuing to work on stuff. One thing they will be doing after in a couple of months from now, or a couple weeks from now, is they'll be doing a lot of the gift wrapping at Fred Meyer's, and it's a big moneymaker for our students. They'll have a booth there, and they will wrap presents for donations, and it's a great way to support our kids in that piece moving forward. But yes, we'll make sure you're apprised of all the opportunities.
Thank you. Any questions about the trip? Do I hear anybody want to make a motion?
I move that the Newburgh Public Schools Board of Directors approve the out-of-country travel to Asago City, Japan in May of 2025 as presented.
Second.
Any further questions?
Perfect.
Not, I call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jillian, you're up.
Okay, the information I am presenting to you this evening can be found on our website and in the board packet that was updated this evening. And I'm also passing around 2 packets. One is the overview of the slides that I'm sharing, and the other is the annual report. Both are posted online. Again, you can find those on the school board website under the board meeting information, and you can also find it on our school district website under the student investment account. So I'm coming to you this evening to discuss our integrated programs, the annual report. So this is our integrated grant. Micaiah, could you put up the presentation, please? Sure, thanks. So this grant covers for us the early indicator and intervention systems, the student investment account, and the high school success grant as well. Okay, it's not advancing. Can you just go to the next slide? Thanks. So the slide is kind of the overview. The integrated grants apply to multiple programs that I just mentioned. Some programs are unfunded, like the Continuous Improvement Plan or Everyday Matters, which is our attendance initiative. These programs work together to have 4 common goals: a well-rounded education, equity advanced, engaged community, and strengthened systems and capacity. So we will be focusing our outcomes this evening on what we're doing to support those common goals. You go ahead to the next slide. Thanks. So for our integrated grants, these are all of the grants combined together. We have a lot of different outcomes that we were looking at improving. So our first one was overall in student attendance, increasing this to above 95% for all of our demographic groups. Our next goal, graduation rate, improving that to 95% again for all demographic groups. We have a goal around CTE success, creating pathways that all students are interested in participating in, and which will not only improve student attendance, but also increase graduation rates. And then, of course, improve student performance on the SBAC assessment. In math, this would be from 38% to 90%. Can you go ahead to the next slide, please? And then on the English language arts assessment from 50.5% to 90%. In addition to these goals, we also had the goal of reducing student to staff ratios across district programs, as well as creating robust and sustainable teaching and learning environments for all staff and students. Can you go to the next slide, please? So these slides are going to go over our grant total allocations for last year, the 23-24 school year. For the SIA grant, we had just over $4 million, and these funds were targeted towards improving student health and safety and well-rounded education. Can you go to the next slide, please? Our high school success grant was just over 1.1 million, and the high school success has quite a few outcomes tied to it. Dropout prevention at the middle school level. These funds are for 8th grade only. We use these for our freshman rising program that occurs in the summer between 8th and 9th grade. Dropout prevention staff and salaries, career technical education staff and salaries, college level opportunity staff and salaries. Can you go next slide, please? Thanks. College level opportunities, equipment, and facilities, supplies, dropout prevention, and ongoing community engagement partnerships, and then dropout prevention curriculum. So the majority of our grant funding is really staffing. Some of it does go to curriculum and professional development and supplies, but the majority of it really is staffing. Next slide, please. Our early indicator intervention systems grant was $12,000 this year, and that was utilized for system software purchases. So on the next few slides, these are itemized allocations and the activities that we spent funds on. If you're looking at the packet with the slides, the charts in there are pretty small, but if you look at the annual report, you can see the full-size chart in there. Again, both can be found on the website. We have all of our licensed therapists, well, not all of them, but a good chunk of our licensed therapists and drug and alcohol counselors were funded through the SIA grant. You will notice that for the expended budget this year, the drug and alcohol counselors were actually expended at $0, and that's because of the work that Amy Stevens and Tony Buckner did last year with getting other grants to support that funding through the county and various resources. So we were able to shift some of those funds to other grants. In addition to that, we have school counselors, our SPED behavioral health coordinator, our teaching and learning coordinator, our curriculum TOSAs for math, literacy, and ELD are also funded through this grant, along with language acquisition professional development. And then if we switch over to high school success, we've got some other funding from the dropout prevention, credit recovery, CTE courses, dropout prevention for both the high school and Catalyst, as well as post-secondary success. And then our summer school and after-school programs, climate and culture for students. We have some funds for school-based health center. And then we've got some other funds that weren't expended that we purchased through our local service plan. So again, some activities were originally in this grant that we were able to shift elsewhere So you will notice that again here, there will be some $0 expenditures. And then we do have quite a bit of funding towards subs and materials towards the end of the grants. Could you go to the next slide, please? So part of the annual report, ODE requires us to comment on annual review questions. This year there were two. The first one is around our overall progress markers and reflection on how we've met or progressed in our outcomes and our strategies. And so for one, you can see the narrative there in your report, but one of the areas that we're really experiencing some great success in is our 9th grade on track local metrics and our graduation metrics. The state metrics are not yet out. Those should be coming at the end of November, but we're really, really excited to see where our data is as those come out, because our local assessments are indicating that we are trending upwards in these areas. And so the work that we've been doing around high school success and 9th grade on track, specifically summer school, credit recovery, credit accrual, and how we're supporting our focal populations in maintaining their credits and achieving those, as well as engaging in school. Our strategies there at the secondary level are really showing that they are beginning to pay off. So those have been some really big bright spots, along with some of the support that we've had in the expansion of the school-based health center, our drug and alcohol counselors, our mental health counselors, our school-based counselors, the support that we have with our special education assistants, our ELD specialists that we have in each school providing co-taught instruction, which was a shift that we went to a few years ago from pullout. And then our reading specialists that we have in every building, K through 8. These are some of the bigger areas that these grants fund, and we are really seeing some great shifts for the students that they are supporting. In terms of some of the barriers or challenges that we've faced, our local data on our assessments and student performance, one barrier is that it's not matching how we are performing as a district on our state assessments for a variety of reasons. Some are that students are opting out. So some of our students who are high achievers are not taking the state assessment, so their data is not being captured at all. The other reasons could be students that might experience test anxiety who maybe don't perform as well on a state assessment as they might on a local assessment, or on interactions or work samples that they have with their teacher, with that personal relationship. So trying to develop other metrics besides those state assessments that we can use to mark where we're at in terms of our academic improvements or achievements is going to be an ongoing conversation that I think we'll have as a district. So that's kind of one of the bigger barrier spots, is that we are making a lot of progress and our local data shows it, but it's not being captured at the state level. So that is what I reported as that barrier question for the annual report. So what does that all mean?
There.
Mhm.
I gotta work on that. Before we go there, that was a whole bunch of information about a lot of important grants that they came at us as separate entities, and then they collected them into this integrated guidance piece. I just wanted to offer like questions, if you have wonderings about the grants, what we use them for, or anything. We went over that pretty quick, and I know it's a lot of info, but just wanted to offer an opportunity for folks to ask some questions before we get into the next part, which is very important too.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So are these funds are they state dollars or are they federal dollars as well?
They're state funds that have come to us. And it started with the High School Success Act in around 2016-ish. And they kind of patterned the way in which you got that grant into the student investment account and kind of duplicated that process. But now they've lumped them all together because there were like 5 different ones in school districts. We're basically saying, hey, this is like 5 different processes. We should just do one process.
So the one grant that's still missing from this lump sum is the early literacy grant, and the state's working on bringing that together in this as well.
Okay. And I know that state funding sometimes comes federal funding to the states, and the states say this is state funding. So I'm just curious about priorities at the federal level and how this might impact our schools, that's not that's,
So the CAT tax is what funds the student investment account. They fund the high school success. It's still state general fund that funds that. But for the most part, the vast majority of this money is already accounted for in state budgets and I don't think there's really any federal money in this.
Yep, that is correct. Yep. As they go through the process, the legislature is refining further and further how the funds are used or what they're designated for. And we'll see that specifically with the early literacy grant. So like the first 2 years of that grant, we were able to use it K-5, but it's really targeted towards K-3. So this is the last year for that. So as they kind of go through the process, they refine further and further.
I have a few questions. Part of it's on some of the FTE, and I guess are all of these individual jobs, or would some of these be a teacher who is then focusing like the dropout prevention staff? Is that an actual position?
Some of them are actual position and some of them is extra time.
Okay.
So for some of it, it's kind of a calculation of total accumulated hours. And that's like, for example, summer school wages, you'll see that at 0.5.
Yeah.
Because that's for the high school occurring over the course of 2 weeks, equals about half a licensed staff.
Would that be the same for the credit recovery?
Credit recovery is an actual person at
Okay.
the high school. That is the credit recovery teacher. Good. So it is definitely a mix of
Yeah.
extra time, extra duty type situations versus actual FTE. And then I would say the majority of it is actual FTE.
Okay.
Which brings up some really interesting questions. What Jillian's going to talk about next is kind of community engagement. This process needs to restart. But the fact of the matter is this money has been invested in a lot of staff. And so to change our direction now means that we're laying off staff. And so I'm not sure the state was really thinking through how this was going to work, because now these are all kind of sunk costs for us. Like if we change our mind, it means we're letting go staff, and we still like what we're doing. So we're not changing our mind, but it's a weird process that we're in with this because we have to go out and begin to get some feedback. And actually that's what Jillian's going to talk about next, is that process, how we're going to engage our community.
I do have one more question. Do we know the percent of students that are opting out of those state assessments? I didn't realize that was necessarily a thing.
We can get it to you.
Okay.
But it is a big issue if we're being graded, assessed on our performance based on those scores, but yet many students can opt out of them. It makes for a very hard comparison tool.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that opting out was an option, or that it would be at a level that's.
Opting out is actually a formal process that we are required to go through and post on our website. And it is used. And I know our assessment coordinator will have that information readily available tomorrow to be able to share out with you, because I know she has
that
it.
on the
Yeah.
Friday memo so that
Perfect.
Well,
everybody gets it.
and I think that has been for at least the last couple of years, the student reps have done some work around getting people to participate in
Mhm.
the assessments. And
Yeah, I guess it always felt like it was more getting people
Like
to
a
be
cheerleading.
excited and
Yeah.
to do it with full vigor, not necessarily to get them to do it. I guess that was just had gone over my head.
Okay, I'm going to have Jillian move on. If you have more questions, we have more, we're going to be working on this for the next couple of months. So we have time to continue to talk about it.
So moving into the next biennium, our integrated plan will go from 2025 through 2027. And through our application process, we'll be engaging our community through multiple pathways. We're going to be administering a thought exchange survey of sorts. We've used this a little bit in the district, but not at depth. So those will be coming out in the next couple weeks, maybe a month or so, just to solicit some further feedback. In addition to some community listening sessions that we'll have a schedule available for in the next upcoming weeks, along with some specific focus groups and student focus groups. And then we also use the data from our Youth Truth Survey that's currently open. So if you haven't had a chance to take that, it would be really awesome to hear your survey feedback from that as well. So lots of opportunity for engagement. I think there's a couple weeks there where I have Dave booked every single week in engagement. So really looking, I think our first one's coming up next week and then moving into December and January. So my kind of close was if you had any questions, but we went through that. We are really excited to go through the engagement process. Like Dave said, a lot of our funding is in staffing. And so I think hearing from the community that the investments that we've made in the programs and the staffing decisions that we have is going to be really important to ensure that we're still moving in the direction that supports the needs of our community.
I have a question about the community listening sessions, which is all fresh on our minds. Is that like something board members could go if we're not in a forum?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think part of the thinking behind this is we need to go out to do this listing anyway, but I also think there's kind of this opportunity for us to do some wider listening about how folks are feeling about the schools and their ideas for improvement. So the questions that we're working out were kind of broader, so that we can pull in all of that info at once.
Okay, I think, I know I would be interested in knowing when those are and deciding if board members want to participate, but making sure we don't have a quorum there.
Great. We will
That'd
get
be
that
great.
information
Thank
to you as soon as it's ready.
Thank you.
It's more of a request. I think before the whole fiasco that started in May through the summer, I think we lost kind of our focus on SBAC and where we're at. You mentioned a couple numbers. I'm not disputing or questioning those at all, but could we wrap back and like give a presentation on what our officials numbers were this year and how they relate to the last few years, et cetera? So
Yes, so the state numbers have not yet been released. That's
Oh,
why
okay.
I'm not talking. That's why I
Okay.
did not explicitly talk about those this evening because I would love to talk about some of them. Are looking really good, trending in the right direction, but that data is still suppressed. ODE expects to have it out by the end of the month.
okay, great.
So I would love to, Holly and I would love to come back and visit you
Yeah.
and talk
Thank
The
about
answer is
that.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
short answer, yes.
Well, thank you very much for your time
Good
and all your hard
Yep.
work and everybody else's.
Thank you. It was a team effort.
Good. Okay, can we pull Gay? Oh, there's Gay Allen. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. How exciting. Yay.
I
I'll take
think
it
this is the
away.
first where everything worked, at least so far. Everything has worked when we got on.
Excellent.
You should have received a packet from me that starts with general fund. Yay, good. I'm glad you got it. I will, if you think it would be helpful, I can bring it up to to share, or we can just walk through it.
No,
Um,
let's bring it up. Let's bring it up.
okay, sounds good. So share. Now I have to figure out which one I'm sharing. Which of my tabs am I sharing? Screen. No. There's got to be more. Ha! Here we go. Okay. I believe that I want, oops. Okay, this is the one I want. Oh, why won't it? Okay, I have to stop sharing because it didn't go to the right one. Sorry, I apologize. And move this down. Okay, I'm on the revenue PDF. Good. Okay, hold on. Let's go back here. Here. And back up. Oops. Up and share. Okay, there we go. So the first thing you have in front of you is the general fund revenue budget versus actual for the fiscal year 2023-24.
Here you go.
When I last gave you an update on the projected ending fund balance for this 23-24 school year, it was between a negative 1.7 million and 2 million.
Galen, can you make we're seeing the whole screen. Can you make that larger?
Oh, make it?
Well,
Yes.
we're seeing the exported PDF and all of that. If you can, there you go.
Is this better?
Yeah, hide the left menu, hide the
Yeah.
all tools menu.
Oh, I see. I see what it's doing. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Is that better now?
Yep, if you can hit one more plus, I think we'll be pretty perfect.
Okay. Can you see the whole page or do I need to scroll down to show you?
Yeah, we'll have to,
First thing.
you'll have to scroll.
Okay, so so as I was saying, that my first initial or the last time I spoke with you, I figured we would have between a 1.7 and $2 million negative ending fund balance. We ended the year much better off than that at a negative down here at the very bottom, 1.2 million negative ending fund balance. This is due to a couple of factors. The biggest ones are we were able to move some expenditures out of general fund and into our ESSER grant, and a couple of other grants that weren't that we had expenditures that fit the grant, and we needed to expend those grants before the end of 6/30/24. So we moved some expenditures in there into those grants, and then I would say even more. We were able to much more accurately allocate interest among all funds, which increased our interest revenue in the general fund. So we decreased our expenditures and increased our revenue by about $500,000. So 300,000 probably is an increase to the revenue and interest, and $200,000 reduction of expenditures in the general fund. So now I wonder if I can click, see if I can move this. If I click here, do you see the new tab?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
If you can close the all tools again, that
Yep,
would,
I will do that. Okay. So this sheet shows you the expenditures by object, by major object category. So salaries, associated payroll costs, etc. Although at the bottom, you can see we did not spend more than what we budgeted, but we spent significantly more than the revenue that we received. So our revenue never hit the $65 million mark. It didn't hit the $62 million mark. So we expended more than the revenue that we brought in. The categories where obviously where we expended the most excess were in salaries, about $1 million, and purchase services to just shy of $4 million. The purchase services includes our substitute costs. It includes our transportation costs. It includes contracts that we had for special education and other services, legal services, audit services. All of those things are contracted services. We had grossly underestimated our budget there, and we also had just expended significantly more in those areas. If I go to the next tab, and I will.
Hey, Ellen, can I ask a quick
Yes,
question?
oh, certainly.
You
And
said
then
we grossly underestimated our budget. You mean revenue?
no, revenue, we overestimated. Expenditures, we underestimated. As you can see, we spent considerably more in both salaries and purchase services. We did underspend in associated payroll costs, but
So
some of that was due to the fact that we did save money at the end of the year by stopping our PERS UAL expense, and then using the balance that we had built up in that account and to offset it. We now don't have anything to offset in this year or going forward. And so we have to charge more to ourselves to cover that debt expense.
thank you.
Okay, so now what I'm gonna show you is, this is, you have probably never seen, this before, this type of a sheet before, but this shows our appropriation levels. Even though we did a supplemental budget and appropriations transfer at the end of the year, because of the way our expenditures came in, we were still over our appropriation level in the general fund. You can see that highlighted in yellow in support services for $281,000. Our auditors have been noted this, and we will take corrective action by bringing this report to you monthly when we bring the financial statements, for you to see where we are in appropriations and where we think we're going to be. And we can make those transfers on a more timely basis. And so we can anticipate things earlier on. And then the last sheet for 23-24 that I'm going to share with you. Oh, sorry, I forgot to close this. Is the state school fund estimate. And I've shared the totals with you before, but here is what you will see also on a monthly basis as we go through the year. So what this sheet shows you is what at each point, the estimates that the state sent out. So at 6/6/23, 12/19/23, 3/28/24, and 5/3/24. Those are the estimates the state sends out. And you can see how it changes. Some of the inputs are our inputs. So those property taxes, you can see they went from 18.8 million to 22.8 million. That was a change that was made with the state when we thought when we knew we were going to have more revenue, local revenue. Unfortunately, it was quite an overestimate of what the local revenue would be. That means that we get less from the state in the current year. And if they true up the local revenue in the following year in May. And so as you look to those two right columns, you can see that the final column and the year-to-date and projected are the same, because we are all done with the year at this point. And this is my estimate based on what we actually received in property taxes, common school fund, county school fund, what our actual transportation expenses were, using their current district average teacher experience and state average. We don't put those numbers in, the state does. What I believe our ADMW, close to what I believe our ADMW will be at the end of the year, but we don't have a completely trued up number yet. And then I'm using the most current funding ratio. We know that will change because the state has a $20 million like ghost district that it holds an appropriation out back. And then when the year is done, they collapse that to be able to true up across the whole state if there's been an increase or decrease in the total number of students, if the state average teacher experience has changed, those types of things. And then they run all that through the process. So I believe if nothing changed at the state level, we would get about $3 million in the May adjustment. We know things will change at the state. So I'm not putting all of that into my estimates as we go in and look forward into 24, 25. But I believe it could be even in excess of that, because usually the funding factor goes up because of that district that they hold the money back in. So this is what I expect, close to what I expect we might get in May. as we go to next year or to this year, our current year, you can see that in the actual column here, we have not received much. This is as of 9/30, so of September 30. We'd had one major payroll and we had received a few months worth of state school fund. So 2 in July, 1 in August, and 1 in September. So 4 months worth of state school fund we had received at that point. But
Hey, Ellen,
Yes.
can you zoom in a little bit so the
Oh,
audience
certainly.
can read the screen?
certainly. Thank you. I have made some projection estimates different from what our budget is here. I haven't changed property taxes except for a little tiny bit here in the prior years because we didn't see as much there, so I brought that down. I didn't change with some of the smaller dollar amounts here, but you will see a change here to the state school fund support. So that is up by about $1.5 million. That is due to bring what I believe we will get, the 2.5 that I believe, or close to 2.5 that I believe we will get from the state in the May adjustment. The reason it isn't a full 2.5 up here is because as we scroll down to our state and federal sources, we get a high cost disability payment from the state that comes basically through the state school fund. It's distributed by the state through the state school fund. And we get that at the end of the year. You'll see that nothing was budgeted for here. It was included up above, and it has been for years. I'm not really sure why, but that's where it's been budgeted for. So I've broken that out based on what we've received in prior years. So we should get at least 800,000. It might be a little bit more, but I pulled that out of the state school fund and brought it down here so that when we look at what I think we'll actually get, it's more evened out across where it's actually going to show up. So, and the other thing that I did want to point out here is that I've got the actual beginning fund balance. We did not budget for a negative fund balance. We budgeted for a 0 fund balance. So that's another sort of hit to our revenue, but we knew it was coming. The bottom line here is I'm estimating at this point that we would have about $1 million in our ending fund balance based off of the expenditures that I will share in just a moment. So are there any questions on revenue? Okay. I'll do this and I will make this bigger.
Galen,
Yes.
Director Dehart, I guess you're going fast. This is a lot
Oh,
to digest.
sorry.
No, I think you're fine, but sorry, I guess I should have asked this. On the first page, you've got the
Oh, sure.
23-24 budget and the state school fund. You had it budgeted, well, it was budgeted at almost 33 million, right?
Mhm.
And then you're saying it came in at 28 million?
Oh, for 23, 24?
Yeah.
Yes.
What? And maybe you already said this, right? But
I'll show you. Okay.
Okay.
We'll go back to this state school fund reconciliation.
and then I'm also looking at the last column where it says the actual year to date, 6/30/2023.
Oops. Oh, shoot. I just
The
closed
state
it.
school fund came in at 32,296,000. So I guess I'm trying to figure out why we're so low on the state school funds by what, 5 million, almost 5 million, 4.5 million a year later.
Page is that?
And I accidentally just closed my tab. But on the state school fund here, you can see that this change between estimating 18.8 million in property taxes, local revenue, and moving it to 22,780. That change, that's about $4 million of change there. That's what drives this difference down here of us receiving less from the state. This 29,241,416 plus what that doesn't include. There is the piece that we receive for the transportation grant. So if you look at what we've got here compared to the 32, that's the big change, is because we told them that we were getting way more local revenue. And so they say, that since you're getting way more local revenue, you're going to receive less state school fund support, because this is the most we can give you, is this the most you can get between local revenue and state school fund is the 52,617,527. So when we go, yes.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. So those two have to balance out, right?
Right. Exactly.
More in the local tax revenue, you get less in the state school funds.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the fiscal year 2023, revenue was 52,387,000. And then a year later, it's down by 3 million almost to 49,066,000. Where is that? I guess I'm trying to figure out why it dropped by almost 3 million between years.
We received the 29,227 in revenue for 22-23, but we also had a negative adjustment from 22-23 in 23-24 in May of 23-24. So not only did we get less for 23-24 because we had made this adjustment up here to the local revenue, but because we had estimated incorrectly the year before, the true up brought in less state school fund than what we had estimated the year before, or what we had received the year before. So we received this 32,296 in 22-23, but we shouldn't have gotten 32. We should have gotten 30-ish. So they held that back in May, and then they also didn't give us much more in May. Our May payment was very low, very, very little this last year, because it had basically two adjustments, the May adjustment for the year before and an adjustment because we had overestimated our property taxes, but we did it partway through the year. So they'd already given us a bunch of revenue up front. And then we said, oh no, our property taxes are going to be high. But you can see they overestimated what our property tax, we overestimated, meaning the estimate that we gave the state was overestimated by $2.3 million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I know it is a lot. It is a lot. Okay, so I'm going to go on to 24-25 expenditures by object. And when you look here, we have our year-to-date, it says revenue budget, but that's an error. I apologize. That is actually revenue and expenditure budget. It's pretty much the same. So our budget for each of these categories, what we've expended as of 9/30, so 7.2 million. What I have projected through the end of the rest of the year. And then, so from 10/1 through 6/30, and then what our total estimated expenditure would be. So, I'm estimating that we will, and what this does is for payroll and for salaries and associated payroll costs, that's pretty much just coming out of the system. What the system tells us we have encumbered in salaries and associated payroll costs through the end of the year. There, I've bumped it just slightly in both categories to account for some of the extended contract that we don't have in the system yet. So our spring sports, some of the time cards that we know we're going to have in. So I went out and looked and said, this is about what we spent that wouldn't have been encumbered at this point in the second half of the year, last year and year before, and built that in. So this should be fairly close. We do have some extra expenditures that keep kind of coming as we have needs through the year. But then I looked at our supplies and materials, capital outlay. The other objects are the bulk of that is our liability insurances. And then what are transfers and contingency. And I believe we will transfer everything that we have projected to transfer. But at this point, we would be eating through the bulk of our contingency. What we get, where it comes back, is because our revenue is in excess of what we were originally budgeting.
On that second to last column, it says 23-24 budget. Is that supposed to be 24-25 budget?
No, that is the 23-24 budget. So that shows you how we compared similar on the revenue side. So the 23-24 budget, we had budgeted 65 million, but we actually spent the 62. So this helps you see where we're coming in compared to what we spent last year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I believe that our purchase services will be significantly less than last year. And a couple of the reasons for that are, I believe that we will have somewhat fewer sub costs because we have some of our own substitutes and they are helping with that cost. That is driving our salary expense up. But the other piece is that we are really, really watching those expenditures that we have for special education and contracted services and any other contracted expenditures. We're watching those much, much more closely and trying to get all of them encumbered. So, for instance, if we have we had a couple of contracts last board meeting for some SPED contracts that we were had a maximum amount. We encumbered for that maximum amount. We don't think we'll go there. We think that we will actually be able to hire internally and relieve that position. But we've encumbered for the entire amount. So we won't be caught not having it encumbered. The other piece I do want to say is that we are working with our schools and departments to bring down those supplies and materials expenses. And we hope to save, between 10 and 20% in different areas by not purchasing some things this year that we can go without. So that is the expenditures by object. The next sheet that you have is the appropriations sheet. And as you can see, we're absolutely beautiful at this point. And part of that, even with our encumbrances. So this includes encumbrances. It's not just where are we to date, but where do we think we're going to end the year? And as wherever we think we're going to basically end the year close to, would we be over or under? And so I believe at this point, we're looking very good. But as we go through the year, we will keep this, and I can see there's one formula that's not pulling quite correctly. But as we go through the year, we will be taking this and bringing it to you rather, so that you can see where are we as far as our appropriations. And if anything should go negative in our estimate at that point, I would bring it forward and say, okay, it looks like we're gonna need some more allocation in the 1,000 function in general fund. Let's go. We've got some capacity in support services. Let's move that from support services up into instruction. And I would bring that as a resolution for you to do an appropriations transfer. And then the last one is going to look really Spartan because it's
Gail,
oh
can I
yeah,
ask a question of this lesson? This
Absolutely.
is Nancy Woodward speaking. The facilities acquisition, is that with the bond, the negative
yes,
there?
yep, that is the bond. So the order of these funds is general fund is 100, special revenue funds are the 200 funds, PERS and other debt service are the 300s, and facilities is our 400s. So we have bond, we have CET, and in the 400s. So that also includes the CET, construction excise tax.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So when we look at the state school fund reconciliation, there's not a whole lot. We've received the 10.6 million from the state so far. We only have the initial estimate, which was done in March of last year, and March of this year and June of this year. The state, I did just receive a email from the state today saying that if we need to make some corrections, they're thinking more towards the ADM. I don't believe that our ADM is off because we're going to be going with with prior year totals, but I'm going to call them tomorrow and see if we can make a change to our property tax estimate. I believe I need to make a change to that property tax estimate now because they said if there's enough change by the 14th, we only have 2 days to get it in. They said it today, this afternoon, and they want everything in by the 14th. But if we can get it in, they would do a rebalance in December. The best part about that is that I believe we need to make a change to our property taxes. If we get it in by December, we still have 6 months, 5 months for it to adjust across. So it will be a much easier adjustment than if we if they were to wait. But I believe we have once again underestimated our property taxes, which would mean we'd have to give money back the next year. And I don't want that. And if we can smooth it over this year with the money that we will be getting in excess for the May adjustment for last year, I think it will be much better than to try and keep it the same, get too much money this year and owe it back the next.
Hey, Galen, this is Director DeHart. So
Yes.
what are you thinking that needs to be adjusted to, and what do you base that on?
When I look at, we've got 20,645,000 estimated right here. That's between all property taxes, so current year and prior year and taxes in lieu. That's less than what we received last year total, or about what we received. It needs to be upped. It needs to be upped. Because it's just too low of an estimate. When I
So why
look,
was it changed from March? It looks like it was changed from March 23,500,000 to June to 20,645,000.
I think, I can't say for sure, but I think what happened is they had made an increase that's too big. They didn't want it to be too big. You want to, I think they wanted to be a little bit closer to where they thought they would be. Unfortunately, I think they brought it down too much. As I was explaining to the, and I think I've explained to the board, but also to the finance committee, it's a little counterintuitive, but in the state school fund, when you're estimating, it's better to, at the beginning, right? At the first estimate of membership and revenue, to estimate ever so slightly, but a little heavy. You want to go with your property taxes, you want to estimate a little bit more than what you think you're going to get. Because when your actuals come in, if they're less than that, you will get money back, you'll get more money from the state. So your May adjustment will be positive, not negative. When we're thinking of how we estimate or budget for our actual revenue in our budget, we want to go the opposite direction. We want to slightly underestimate, be very conservative in our revenue estimates. And maybe slightly aggressive in our expenditure estimates, so that we have room on either side. We have room to receive more money. We can get more money than what we've estimated. And that's always a plus. But if we don't expend all of our expenditures, that's even better. And holding it somewhere where it maybe can't be expended unless we need to push it out. So but that's contrary to what you want to do sort of in the state school fund.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I agree with you about conservative estimates, but that goes to a point, right?
Oh, no,
Obviously.
absolutely.
So what, is there a
right.
target percentage that you want to be, I guess, underestimating revenue and overestimating expenditures?
Oh, I mean, for me, and by overestimating, what I say is giving myself enough room, especially in expenditures. If I know I'm not gonna I would look and say if let's say just for instance, if PG&E says we're gonna raise rates by 5%. And Northwest Natural is going to raise them by 6%. I'm going to stick somewhere around 5.5% to raise them. I'm not going to go 6% for both. Right? I'm gonna do more of that's. It's a little more nuanced, right? And it shouldn't be a lot, right? It's kind of a hair, and you get used to doing that over time as you're looking at your budgets and what did we expend in prior years. You're not just going to say what we're going to up budget by like 1% or 5%. We're going to look at what we actually spent and up that by 5%. So it's kind of, it's not just looking at budget and then taking a percentage higher. It's looking at your actuals as you're moving them forward. But I would say, gosh, no more than 0.5% to 1%. I mean, you just don't want, you want it to be as tight as it can be, but the last thing you want is to have underestimated your revenues and underestimated your expenditures. That's basically what happened last year.
All right,
Because
thank you.
they spent all of their contingency down.
So what do you think that, the property taxes need to be adjusted to?
I think they need to be adjusted to closer to 21 million. It's not a huge adjustment there. But, and we will have, we have received our very first property tax, turnover, from Clackamas County and Yamhill County, on Thursday of last week. So we will get more, info this Thursday, but I can start to extrapolate even before then, where I think we're gonna be, especially based on prior years. We are getting year over year about between 3 and 5% more per year in property taxes than the year prior. So we want to go up here.
Yeah, no, I get that. So I guess just for my own edification, those property taxes, how many influxes of revenue do you get from is it the county?
Yeah, so
And then are they all equal amounts, or does
No.
it?
So we get probably between 85 and 92% of our property taxes in November and the first part of December. The rest of it comes in those quarterly. So people have to pay in November. They pay in February and May. Those are the 3 times I believe it is, or maybe that's when we receive them. But those are your big payments. When people who didn't pay all of their taxes at this point, but paid the first 2/3, pay the rest of it in those 2 other installments. Or in one installment. They may have paid 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, or 2/3, 1/3. People have options on how they're going to pay it. If you have it withheld in an escrow account, they pay the whole kit and caboodle. But if you're paying it yourself, you have options of how you're going to pay it throughout the year. So we do get extra pieces, but I can extrapolate out based on what we've gotten in prior years at the end of November and the end of December is a percentage of what we're going to get. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So that's really, I'm going to stop sharing now. But I do have a couple of other things just to report on. Our auditors have completed field work. And we have had our exit interview with them as a finance team. We have been told that we will have a rough draft either this next week, but for sure before Thanksgiving. We're hoping to have the auditors present financial statements at the December 10th board meeting, which is awesome. One of the things I do want to say is I really need to thank Andre Schellhaus and my team for getting all of the information together for our auditors. They were rather blown away by the preparation that we had made and the things that they didn't have to do. We prepared multiple lead sheets for them in advance so that they had that. We had property taxes reconciled, a bunch of other things that they did not have to do. They just had to check our work. And so I feel that that we're in much better shape and that they have the ability to get financial statements to us earlier than they have in at least 3 years. So that's pretty awesome. And we should be able to then have everything filed with the state before the end of the year.
Gail, and I have a question. So is this auditor that you're using the same folks that we've used the last 2 years?
Yes, Polly
Okay.
Rogers.
Because they were really delayed. And so I'm glad to hear that. And it sounds like it's all that prep work that you did up front.
That and us keeping on them and saying, look, we have to have this. I think being, and just, coming to them with, the solution before, with the problem, right? So, we will have a prior period adjustment. We found it. We have adjustments that have to be made to fixed assets. We found those and proposed the adjustments that needed to be made. We found several other processes that needed to be changed. We worked with them to explain what needs to happen. And I think that's been refreshing for them.
Well, thank you for your leadership in this area and for your team's extra hard work.
Thank you. They've really done a great job.
Galen, I do have one quick question, and you don't have to bring up your screen again. So on the
Okay.
24-25 expenditures, under the 700 category, you have transfers and contingency. Can you tell us how much the contingency is calculated in that? Or is that all transfers?
It's the 44,129 is the transfer. So it's 1.4 and change, 1.43.
I don't know if you realize this, but in May we did an emergency policy override to say that we're going to waive our contingency plan for this year, the 24-25 year. So I don't mind if it stays here, but to me, that's if we pulled that out or whatever. I mean, it seems like then we'd actually have more ending balance. I don't know, just something for the board to realize and look at, because we did waive that policy, so we shouldn't. I know from one side, I think we should have the line item, but the other side, since we waived it, it's like we shouldn't have it this year, and we should have a bigger ending balance. But I don't know. It's just a thought. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Galen? All right. Thanks, Galen. I don't know if you want to stay on while Jeremy does his financial committee. Okay, great. Thank you.
Turn my audio off.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeremy.
Galen's been awesome. She spent, boy, the 3 major meetings we've had since we came back to the board and asked, hey, can we up our community members from 3 to 6? We appointed them. They had great questions. It's been basically 3 meetings of learning. And if you, I mean, these are great questions here, but we dive deeper into this even more in our last session that just happened last week. So you might want to go watch it. There's some other great questions and discussions around this whole thing that Galen presented. And just to make sure the board is aware and the community is aware, we have 3 finance officers in the committee. Well, we have 2 in the committee, and Galen's there as just a representative from Newburgh School District. So we have 3 finance officers that probably, I don't know, I'm guessing over 6 years experience combined. I mean, these are high level folks, and they're helping educate everybody, the community members, me and Saul. But as part of that, there's one suggestion, because Galen did suggest, and we brought to the well, we talked about forensic audit for a while, and I think Paula, we gave her approval to start looking into it. And then Galen said, Mr. Parker is like, he's going to start looking into it, whatever, provide some names, and that sparked, the discussion around forensic audit. And I'm just going to do a kind of summation of some thoughts. So between Claire, which is, again, a finance officer in her day job, Michelle, which is a finance officer in day job, and then Mark, which is, he's George Fox, looks over some finance committee stuff there. And then everybody else pretty much agreed. But the bottom line is, we don't think the forensic audit's needed. Galen has not seen any red flags that we should be looking for to say we think there was malfeasance of funds. And then I'm sure she's bounced it off Andreas and then Michelle and Claire. And like, there's just no recommendation at this point from their view to say we should keep going forward with that. The agreements or the collective thoughts is that let's look forward and not in the past. We just feel that most of it was a miscategorization of things, maybe lack of knowledge of how school funding works and tracking all that and income and outgo and all that other stuff. And so the bottom line is like let's use what we are looking at doing maybe for their forensic audit and maybe put it towards finding the best person to take this over. Because this is still just a temporary position for Gail. And I don't know, we just want to share those thoughts from the committee and bring it to the board.
I don't think you should tell her it's a temporary. Maybe she doesn't know.
Wow.
Don't say those things out loud.
I know, Saul, do you have anything else?
I just did want to follow up because we talked a bit about the state school fund. And on the 10/16 finance committee meeting, we did a 2-hour deep dive into how it all works and went through the last 2 cycles to see how these 4 big periods develop what we get and how we lost the money the one year and where we're at. At the end of this year, I just thought it was really, I learned a lot. It's not necessarily the most fun thing, but man, I think that it could serve people who are interested in understanding how that works a lot to go and just hear. I think it was Claire and Michelle that day who really went over it in depth. But it is confusing until I think once you learn it, it makes a lot more sense and how all of these different calculations work and why being on top of it constantly does a lot more for our district and figuring out how much revenue we will be getting in. So just a plug for a really fun educational session on the state school fund.
And the last thing I'll add is part of our committee is also to help with trying to communicate out or provide help, guide, structure communication out to the community. And we actually already have a subcommittee that's going to be taking a stab at what we've learned so far and trying to be easy, digestive information to help present. And maybe some of these feedback sessions that Dave Parker's talking about or whatever, maybe they can help present in those or whatever. But just something that's easy, hopefully easier consumption than a 2-hour meeting talking about state funding and how it works. So,
well, I mean, I think that'd be really interesting for the board as a whole to listen to. And I spoke with Dave a little bit about potentially having maybe the January 28th meeting. You know, we have an extra meeting, a work session on the 28th. I don't know if that's too soon for you guys to sort of do a walkthrough in terms of what we think has happened.
Why? I don't know if I don't think it's too early. I think we are focusing, our next time we were going to meet was early February because that was going to give us time to, well, you know, gets past the holidays, people, you know, not here, whatever. But then there was something, I can't remember, but there's something that's going to happen like end of January. We're going to get more solidified information and be able to like say,
Okay.
this is what our new projections should be for the rest of the year. Maybe it's all after the property taxes come in and everything.
Well, February 25th also has a second, if I'm reading this right.
So yeah, we could do either or, and we can maybe ask if they want to come together.
If I could,
I'm open. So go ahead, Gail.
I was going to say the one thing, we should have the governor's budget by then. And we may have our first stab at the legislative committees or the agenda or budget as well. So Legislative Revenue Committee. So we may have information on what our budget for next year is going to look like. That was the other piece that I think we were hoping for that February meeting.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yes.
Mhm.
So just to summarize, what I think I'm hearing is, and which meeting we do it at, it's more about just providing a summary out to the community of what we found out. And what I'm hearing is we think we can do that inside, that the forensic audit just save the money and use that going somewhere else. And then we'll present out at some point to just tell that story. And then I'm just looking for, I'd like to check this box that we're not doing the forensic audit and that we're going to do it this way so that I can keep moving with other things. But I think that's what I'm hearing.
I would say that part of our conversation was about this idea of trying to make clear to the community why we would choose not to do the forensic audit. Not necessarily, we're not going to do it, and then we'll try to tell you the best way, but trying to find a good way to say, all right, this is where in May or June, when everything blew up, this is how we saw everything. And now that we've kind of gotten a chance to go through the information, we see that there isn't necessarily those red flags that we were all very scared of. And to summarize that information for the community to not think that this is something that's getting swept under the rug.
Right. So I don't know if we need an action. I'm just looking for a direction from the board if that's the route you want me to take here.
Well, is there anybody that would prefer to go the route of having a formal forensic audit? This is a good time to say yes.
I'm still out on this. I guess what I would like to see and what I've been asking for is a complete analysis of where we were and why we got there, how we got there, and stuff before we make a decision on whether we need a forensic audit or not. If that's, do we have any idea when that's going to happen?
It depends on what you mean by the analysis part of this. I think we can put together a summary of kind of what has happened, and we can get that to the board. We can present it to you, but that's kind of what I think we're trying to do here, is to say, we want to explain what happened. The areas that do we want to run this through a forensic audit, or do we just want to take what we've learned and present it?
Yeah, I don't think we need to move forward at this point, but I don't want to take it off the table.
Agreed.
So I don't know that a vote needs to be taken on it. I think
I can take
Make
that
the-
and start moving with it. Yep.
thanks.
All right, thanks. Is there anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Saul, do you have anything to add for your? Okay. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate you guys adding that to the agenda and all the work that I know you're putting in. Okay, so the board, I want to talk about our Oregon Government Ethics Commission update. The board we had 3 complaints against each individual. The complaints come to us individually. And it was October 18th. Is that the date that we went to OGEC? Does anybody remember what day that was? November 1st. Oh, November 1st. Sorry. That's right. October 18th was the day. Okay. So November, and we sat and heard the Oregon Government Ethics Commission review the complaint that was submitted by Rebecca Wallace against all of us, the 3 different complaints, and heard the commission discuss the cases individually, and they found there was no sufficient evidence to move forward with further investigation and dismissed all the claims for each of us independently. And I would like to say was a very frustrating exercise. And I think it is what was designed to be frustrating by creating these complaints against us that we did review as a board and did have our attorneys review and said we didn't violate. But then it got sent up to were submitted to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And I think it's important for the community to understand that each one of those are against us personally and can cause the potential for us to have personal liability, either fines against us as individuals, but then also costs associated with defense, and whether it's recommended that you would hire a lawyer to defend you, which then you may end up having a fine anyway. So, I think that is a tactic that is to me, and this is just my own personal view, is designed to punish us for being elected. I'm just going to say it. And we have worked, our board and our leadership have worked very hard to maintain our commitment to the ethical standards and to the letter of the law that we can for our executive sessions and our commitment to public meeting laws. And I would say that Nancy and I were most involved in those cases because we were calling the lawyers regularly. We had lawyers giving us advice. We had written advice. And so I'm just, to the community, I just want folks to understand that we did all go through this exercise. Every one of the board members were either present in the room or were on Zoom to either to hear or present additional information. And I personally am very pleased that the Government Ethics Commission voted to dismiss them, but I do feel that that's an organization that is weaponized against board members. And it was a very frustrating process, but I'm in the end, I'm glad that, obviously I'm very glad that we didn't end up having to hire lawyers, but it's very frustrating that we've, been voted onto this board to do the work, and we've been doing hard work. We've been doing a lot of more meetings this year than we really had anticipated. We've come up against some unanticipated challenges as a board, and I think that we're working really hard together to do the right thing. And so I just wanted to let the community know that we survived those. And I don't know if anybody else has any comment that they would like to make about that.
I'd just say that we're a young board, and there were a few technical issues that we faced with those challenges. And I think the biggest thing is learning from those, that, a meeting, it is important to start on the time, even if the goal is to help people maybe not have to stay here till 10. But yeah, I think it's important that everyone has a chance to learn and grow. And so I guess being patient with us, I appreciate it, while also making sure that we're following the rules that we're supposed to follow.
And I'm just going to add that one of the complaints was our listening session, which is the comment I made about, is that we had board members there. And it's hard for me to understand the complaint of having listening sessions and board members present, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is hear from the community about very important issues that are of concern to them. And I think that was the particular one. The first one we had where there was dispute about whether we did something in executive session that we clearly didn't do, despite the fact that we had legal counsel leading us through the entire process. The second one was that we left one meeting to go into executive session 15 minutes early, despite the fact that all the media that would have been in attendance was in attendance, and community members weren't allowed to be in attendance. So 15 minutes early for that. And then the third, was the listening session. So that was very frustrating that in the process of trying to be very accessible to the community in a time of crisis, was seen as an opportunity to, and again, I'm just going to say this is my particular perspective, is to go after us as a board. So there you have it, until the next complaint. Dave, why don't you talk to us about our
Just a couple of updates. So we'll keep this moving. The first one, I want to talk just a little bit about emergency and safety planning and kind of the work that we're doing there. We've taken the work that kind of got started this summer. I know Paula and Claudia were working on trying to revamp some of the processes. We're continuing to go that. Andy, Ben Patterson, and Ben Burkhart kind of leading folks through that. We've begun to look at the procedures. There was a red binder in the old days that had kind of all of the different procedures, weather, emergency, everything. They're in the process of going back through that, updating and modernizing that. In the same period of time, I had a meeting with the police. It was on a different matter, but we got to talking, and the district hasn't been meeting with the police regularly. And that was something that we had done in past years. So I've reset those meetings. And it's really important that we have those meetings because that's where we communicate both issues that they're seeing out in the community and the issues that we are. So we've reset that to kind of reestablish that collaboration. They've started work on the reunification process, which is in the event of a big emergency where we have to reunify students with parents. There's a process by which we go through. We had done this probably 6 or 7 years ago, had a sample, and we had kind of processes. Those are now all outdated, and the equipment that we had in the facilities is no longer there. So we have to go back and kind of refresh that process. They've started meeting to do that. They're looking to kind of have it ready to trial, to do a pilot this summer. So that's kind of our timeline that we're working on, trying to reunify that. But I just wanted to make sure the board kind of knew what we're doing to begin to get refreshed and restructured around the emergencies. The weather, all the folks who are involved in weather, we met 2 weeks ago to walk through our process of, I get up at 3:30 in the morning, and so does transportation. And then we start to drive roads and who's calling who. And so we've gone through and laid out all of our processes so we know how to react to that. So that's kind of an update on where we're at on kind of emergency and safety planning. The next step here, board calendar. So in your board packet, you'll find one of these guys. I'm in looking at kind of our calendar, what I'm recommending to the board is that we go back to 2 meetings a month so that it's not so much stuff on one day, that we split this up a little bit. Now, the interesting thing is for many months, we already had 2 planned anyway. So it's not a huge change, but, and then the second thing is I would ask that we separate the 2 board meetings by a week. It's a lot of prep work for our team to get it ready. And so I just want to make sure that when we come to a meeting, we're prepared and ready, and having 2 back-to-back is hard for us to make sure that we're doing a good work. So we put together this calendar, and what you can see is on it, you'll see some green dates. These are the ones that we're proposing that we add. And so you'll see in November, we already had one planned for, well, we can talk about that next. We have one planned for the 18th. Then there's only one in December. There's 2 in January already slated. Then we're proposing that we do February 25th as an addition. This is actually right in the middle of budget season. So all of these will be very useful for us. March, we are proposing that we do 2 back-to-back because we have a spring break. And again, that'll be right smack dab in the middle of our budget season. April, it's 2. We've already got 2 in May, and then we're proposing one on the 24th of June. Usually that's not a long one, but with budgets and the rest, it's almost making sure you have a meeting there is pretty important. So what I'm hoping for is that we can have a conversation about whether people like this, don't like this. We can leave it as it is, but it's just something I think might help us.
I think we need to go to 2. I just feel as, Nancy and I have been, working on agendas for the last, year, and James and I are now working on them this year, and there's just so much work to be done. And I feel like the work sessions, if we're doing them, wisely, we're really learning and growing as a board. And I would totally welcome to. The 18th is not for the next Monday is not a typical day. And I just wonder if that accidentally got marked as a box. And Dave and I wanted to talk about whether we could do it on the 19th versus the 18th, if people were more available. But I am comfortable with changing the calendar. I'll just weigh in on that.
Dr. Parker, I know that when we talked about it, one thing I liked was that second meeting would be more of the work session, and then having, I liked your idea of presenting some things at the first meeting so we can think on it too, because I think sometimes that's happened over the last bit since, like at least since I've been on the board, of sometimes feeling rushed to make a decision and not being able to understand everything. So it'd be great to have, I think, some of those sessions, talk about it, and then have a week or two to chew on it, come back and take some action. So I really like it. I think I'm in favor of it, especially if the second one is the work session. We're not doing our board comments and the public comments and things like that. We're doing it the first one for feedback, and then when we come back and we actually do our work, so we can get through it a lot quicker and back to our families and have our student reps go back to school. So their homework.
Perfect. So we'll bring this back for action next week, because this does sit in the reports, presentations, and discussion items. So we'll bring it back. We still have time, but you'll get to look at it. I think the one question that we do need some action on is if we're going to change 18th to the 19th, that would be the one that we would need to take action on tonight.
I mean, I'd be okay with moving it to the Tuesday. So.
I am tentative on Zoom for either date, but I will do what I can.
I'll be on Zoom for those dates too, which is fine.
I have no issues for those 2 days.
Okay, sounds like we can move it to the 19th.
Okay, I think we need to actually get a motion and
you
then
You checking? Yes. Wait on that and then.
Yeah, well, and check to make sure that you would be available on Monday too, because either way.
Yeah, actually the 19th works better for me.
Okay, great.
Well, then I make a motion that the second meeting of the school board be on November 19th, starting this work session at 6 p.m. on November 19th.
Second.
Any questions? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
okay.
We need to go around.
No, I think everybody said aye. So it's, yeah, so we're good. Thank you.
I assume that we will be sent Zoom links if we request them.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll get on that part. The we've got future board action items coming up, but I'm bringing in somebody who can, when I came in, there was some interest in knowing more about like local option. And so I've talked to Piper Sandler, and we have someone who can kind of come educate us about what it is and what it looks like and what its possibilities are and the rest. And so that's one of the things we've got scheduled for next week. It should be really interesting. So.
Can I make a request? I'm assuming this might fall on Tabitha, but like, can she just start sending official meeting invites for all these to us? So
Yeah.
it's on our calendar or our...
calendar invite for the board.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the next, we have OSBA elections coming up, and we are not voting tonight, but we will on the 19th. It's just, I really want people to read through all of these documents because so under the board of directors, position 1, Craig Albright, he's out of Dayton. I think we voted for him last time. I have met him at a couple of OSBA trainings. He's very engaged. The resolution 2 is OSBA dues schedule. It's a relatively steep due increase over a length of time. Then resolution 3, it creates school board member pride caucus and designates a seat on the OSBA a board of directors and legislative policy committee. And then resolution 4 is amendments to the OSBA bylaws. And they're all this data is in this packet. I just really encourage you take time to review these. And then we can make the vote on those. We'll need to make the vote on those on the 19th and get those into OSBA like we have done in the past. So then the one action item we actually really have to do tonight, which if we get down to the very last page.
I'm sorry, one clarifying
Okay.
question. We vote as a unity here, like a district, or is it individual votes towards them? Like it could be 7 different votes on,
We vote as a district.
that's what I was, okay, thank you.
Just trying to remember how we did that last time.
Okay, so we're voting on what our vote is.
Yes. Okay, so the WESD Budget Committee had an opening and we had sent that out. We'd received that a few months ago. I don't really remember when we got that. And I know that one of the individuals who had expressed interest in being on our finance committee, I had suggested that he think about applying for the WESD budget, which he did. And so that is Rick Rogers. And you have here, Rick lives in the district and has expressed an interest in joining the WESD budget committee. Some of you may know him as he's been, previously the mayor of Newburgh, but a lot of folks know him about his engagement in rugby. Isn't he part of the rugby? Yeah. And then Habitat for Humanity, of course. And so Rick has put his name in there, and we would need to vote on whether we want to designate Rick Rogers as a candidate for the WESD budget committee from our area.
I think it'd be good to have someone from Newburgh on the budget committee, and since he's offered his name, I would support it.
So I'm looking at the ORS on here, and to me, it's a little confusing, but I'm assuming the way this is written, that essentially he falls into the last or shall be designees of a school district board.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have no one else from the school district itself that has put a request in for the WSD.
Not that I'm aware of.
Do we see that, or does it just go straight to them?
It goes straight to them.
Okay,
It's like us filling our budget committee.
right.
They're for the most part doing that. The member districts, their boards have to approve it, but it's really their budget committee that they're filling. So they're the ones doing the communication and the rest.
Right. So if somebody within the school district that wants to be a representative, doesn't necessarily have to go through us to be the WSDs, they could go directly to them.
Correct.
Okay.
They would go directly to them.
Okay.
And then that would get sent out like this to the member district boards to approve it.
Okay. So at this point, we have not received any bounce back saying we have somebody from the WESD has not sent anything to us saying there's
No.
been so many. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I move to designate Rick Rogers as a candidate for the WC Budget Committee.
Second.
Any further questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried unanimously. I will. Maybe Rick's watching. He's watching. Congratulations. Okay. So let's go through our board and superintendent comments. Oliver, do you want to start?
Coming into the meeting, it's very exciting seeing all the work being done on the budget. Thank you, Galen, for, helping work with all the numbers. I am a numbers guy. It was actually really interesting for me to just read all the different things, where the money's going in, where the money's going out, what are we going to do better this year? How are we keeping track of our money? Things sound great. On the high school side of things, we're in the middle of a show run right now for the musical Lightning Thief. I came here straight from a photo call, so we were taking a lot of pictures. I hope I got most of my makeup off because I had a full face of makeup. I had a scar here. It was a lot of fun. But we have another weekend coming up, but so far it's been pretty successful. So that's yeah.
I'm impressed with you coming straight from a photo call. It's very professional of you. I've heard nothing but good things. I have a date planned with my kids this weekend to come see it. So we are very excited. I don't have a whole lot, just a plug for that Youth Truth survey, because every administrator I know is really hoping that parents will participate in that. So please take that survey. I also had the chance to attend a dual language night last month at Edwards Elementary. They are doing a wonderful job making those dual language nights not only educational for families and students, but it's also a great community builder. So if anybody would like to come to the next one, I'll be sure to let you know when it is. But our parent group organizes a meal for everyone to share, and it's just become a really wonderful part of the dual language community over there. So thank you to that team putting on those. That is all I have.
Yeah, I have a pretty light comments too, but kind of bouncing off the Truth survey. I just actually looked at my emails. It's not very clear. It should be for the parents. And to me, youth survey and be very involved is always sounds more for the school, is for the youth of the school. So if parents are supposed to be doing this, it should be clearly stated in the emails. I got one from NHS and COA because my daughter's dual enrolled. It is not very clear. So just feedback. I know we have a few extra short days, but like if you want feedback from parents, make sure it's very clear. I don't know. I've heard phenomenal things about the play. Going this Saturday, have tickets already for the matinee show. If you weren't there for Friday night's football game, it was a nail biter, seat clencher, whatever adjectives you want to throw in there. It was down to the last second, last row, and we beat them, and so that was awesome. So we're hosting Grants Pass this Friday for the second round playoff.
Is it Friday or Saturday?
OSA has a Friday.
Okay.
So I don't think it moves till Saturday until the next round.
Got it.
But that's my knowledge. So other than that, again, I think I've said it all for the finance committee. It's been a blast. It's been long nights. Well, I guess maybe I'm a nerd because it was a blast, but it's just educational, and it might seem long and daunting, but like I wake up the next day and like I was listening to Gail and go over this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense, even going second time over and all this other stuff. And like very little questions or no questions, So again, another plug, you can watch it online live. You can come, it's in this room, and you can come sit here live if you want. Do suggest maybe board members to skim through a little bit and pick up on some things. Yeah, other than that, it just seems like we're moving forward and it feels good. So thank you.
I have two kind of thank yous. I don't know if people were aware, but last Thursday on November 7th, the Newburgh Community Band had a free concert at the Bauman Auditorium at George Fox University. And the conductor of that is Dick Elliott, retired band director for Newburgh High School. And he and the band had amazing number of professional and retired teachers in it. They said everybody who was retired, our current band teacher, to stand up, and it was amazing how many people were participating. But the exciting thing is they passed buckets really around the audience to raise money for the arts programs for Newburgh schools. And so community members that were there had the opportunity to give money, and anybody who wasn't there and wants to give money for the arts, you can make a check out to Newburgh Community Band, and they will distribute it to all the schools equally, to elementary, middle, and high schools. And it was a really fun concert to attend. And I have attended the Lightning Thief. And Deb and I went, and it was fantastic. And congratulations to you. He's one of the leads. He's being modest, and he's very good. And all the kids did a really good job, and it was a really entertaining event. And I'm glad other people are going. I hope that they enjoy the show as much as I did. And so I just continue to be thankful for the community for the way they're coming forward and supporting the schools. by making donations, gifts in kind, giving money for special things. And I think I feel like we are really kind of turning the corner for positivity.
Well, I loved The Lightning Thief. It has been a fan favorite in our family for years, and we even named one of our Great Danes Percy, so you did a great job. We even did a little thing for you. I don't know if you saw it. So I thought you would probably be super impressed that the board chair and past chair were there. It was such a fun play. And what I thought was so cool is it had younger kids, middle school. Were there elementary school kids in there too, or?
There were, we had elementary school children from like 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
It was just really very fun. So I would really encourage you guys to go and see it. And then our Rotary Club did a work day out at Ewing Young, painting and spreading bark chips and weeding. We've kind of decided that we would, Mr. Henderson has a long list of to-dos, a honey-do list. And then I think we're going to try to continue to work on that. I don't paint. I don't weed. I don't do bark chips, but I do cook. So I made soup and fed everybody. So, but it was really nice and got a lot of good feedback from the teachers who had requested accent walls, and they look really bright and cheery. I am just really thankful that you're here, Dave. It's been an easier month this month for me personally.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you getting out and meeting everybody and, just getting going.
Yeah.
Keep mine short. Yeah, I'm really happy you're here, Dave. It's been great. You've hit the ground running and already helping us improve some processes. So thank you. I'm just looking forward to kind of like we talked about with the finance budget committee, all that stuff with just looking forward and not continually having to go back. So really excited for that moving forward and get back to focusing on the kids.
Yeah, so I got a chance to go. Joanne Austin had a character trait award assembly for some of the kids. It's always fun to go and celebrate those little ones who were doing fun things, and then see all their friends celebrate them as well. I have mixed ideas on having a furlough day right after Halloween. It was both great and less great as a parent in that moment. Exactly. Yes, I also plan on going to the play this weekend. I'm very excited. Hopefully the football game as well. Yeah. Glad to have you on board, Dave. Really appreciate you being here. To another month.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess keeping with the theme of keeping it short, I'll do the same. So thank you.
So now it's up to me. So a couple of things. One, I just wanted to talk about the other thing I'm planning on working on is bringing you some drafts now Tuesday around the superintendent board agreements, and then we can sit down and do some work around. But I'll get you a draft so you have something to work off of, and then we can make whatever changes you want to make on it. But we'll work on that, and then we'll end up approving it in December, I guess will be once we get there. So that's coming. Policies, I've contracted with OSBA to do a policy review. So we'll be bringing together the policy committee to start doing the work. And last time we did this was like 2013, and they do groups of policies. And so I think the work here is I'll get a schedule from them, and then we'll sit down as a policy committee to start doing that work. And then we'll bring those forth to the board. But that'll be probably a year's worth of work, but at least we're kind of getting started and organized and going. And then just some last words would be, thanks. I've now been in the district 3 weeks, and it's a weird deal, right? Because there's a lot of work, and we've been really busy. I've asked the cabinet to start coming to the board meetings, and so they're here. But there's just a lot of work that's going on here, and the funny thing about it is I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely engaged and there's lots of problems that we're trying to solve right now, but I've had just my conversations with staff and with folks is everybody's really pulling together. And, there's not any part of our district that is not working hard right now, whether it's teachers with the increased class sizes, whether it's custodians with fewer work, all our administrators are doing multiple jobs. So everybody's having to work hard, but and it's, there's some stress there. I'm not saying that, but I will say everybody's just like, okay, how do we pull together? How do we get this done? And so I just appreciate coming back to Newburgh and that was my experience when I was here too. That's not like a new thing about Newburgh, but I do appreciate kind of the hard work, the long days, but I'm enjoying the work and I'm happy to be here. So I've been getting out to do these meet and greets with all of the staffs and stuff, and it's been really, really positive and fun to see people again. So, and with that, I'm going to stop talking because we're 2 hours in on this one, and we all start to lose it out here. 2 hours. 2 hours. Right.
Okay, so we have moved our next week's meeting will actually be on Tuesday, November 19th. And then December 10th will be our regular work session. So our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.